What's up, everybody? Welcome to episode 390 of Opinions May Vary. I am your host, JR. My co-host with me, Alex.
Hi.
How are you?
Good.
We're going to have a lot of fun this week because we don't have a guest, right now. Because, we are, they're going to be here in a second.
Yeah.
Because we're doing, a hype up. It's going to be New York Comic Con in less than a week. Literally a week from today will be, the middle of it, I guess.
Yeah.
So New York Comic Con is going to be happening, and we're going to have on a couple artists this week to kind of hype it up, get amped for the show.
Jer had the good idea of saying, let's talk to people who are going to be at the show.
Yeah.
And I said, oh, yeah.
Yeah.
We should do that.
And then Alex did all the rest of the work, including a little bit of extra work because your boy had to work. So we talked with two artists. One of them was Alex flying solo, similar to what he did with Dead by Daylight. Gentlemen, because your boy was busy and Alex isn't painfully and awkwardly shy like myself.
What's going to be neat is that between the two artists, there's a few things that you'll find similar. Because Jared doesn't know what I'm talking about.
I don't, because I haven't heard it yet.
He hasn't heard the second one. But it was interesting hearing some of the process and how they work and what they like to do for themselves. Mm-hmm. And it's been neat. And also what one's past job has been and what one's future job is also related. There's a lot of things that are related. And it's not even on purpose. They're just names that I've interacted with in the past that I tried to get on the show in the past, and we managed to actually connect this time, and we get to do it now.
We made it work. We got a twofer. It was a lot of fun. And I kind of don't want to delay it anymore. So
they are going to be Christopher Jones and Domo Stanton.
Yes, in that order.
Yes,
in that order. So we're going to kick it off with our chat with Christopher Jones. So check it out now. All right, now joining us is artist Christopher Jones. Christopher, thank you so much for coming on.
Oh, absolutely. Thank you for having me.
We are going to have a ton of fun today. This is, as we said, this is kind of like our New York Comic Con hype up episode. So we're featuring a couple different artists today. And we're gonna start off. We're gonna start off with you today, Christopher, and we're gonna have some fun. So I'm gonna let Alex take the reins on the intro here, because this has been another one of the trying to make it happen, just didn't quite work, but now we made it work, and it's gonna be great.
I'll make contact, and I'll try not to be a pest, and I won't bother some for a while until I find maybe a good reason to come back to it, and we say, hey, let's try this again, and here we are. We've ran into Christopher a couple of times over the past few years at New York Comic Con, usually because I exploit his very kind offer of having free mini prints. If you show up and you say, I follow you on this, I follow you on Facebook or on Instagram or something. And I think last year's was the Wonder Woman and the Invisible Jet.
I think it's been a couple of years ago, but that is one of the ones I have. Yes, I try to do a new one every year. When I started doing them, the first convention I did one at was C2E2 in Chicago. So that's where I refresh with a new one every year. Mm-hmm. And the newest one is Captain Marvel meeting Captain Marvel, Carol Danvers and Billy Batson, shaking hands.
Nice.
Because they're friends. Why wouldn't they be? So
that's kind of Alex has explained this to me in the past, but it's if you follow me on here, if you can show me, then you get this neat little thing.
The theory of it is it encourages people to follow me on social media, but really I kind of play fast and loose with those rules. I will go on the honor system. Basically, it's just, it's nice to have a little something that I'll have fans stop by my table, especially younger fans sometimes, where, they appear to sincerely be really happy to have found my table and to meet me, but, they don't always have even $5 for one of my little mini prints or something. So it's nice to just have, whether it's something for kids or something to encourage adult fans to actually, follow my social media so that I don't lose track of them in between conventions, whatever it is. I use them for a lot of stuff. But I've been doing that for 5 or 6 years now.
I feel it's also a good point to get people to come interact with you now.
Yeah, absolutely.
Someone might walk by and just look at the art and look at your stuff and go, oh yeah, Young Justice, okay, and move on. Versus I'm going to come all the way up to the table. I'm going to look at your stuff. I have to say hi to you. and I have to be polite. Hopefully you wouldn't get any jerks who are like, hey man, just give me the free stuff.
Hey, where's the free shit?
I don't mean to sound like I have a huge ego about myself or anything, because I don't think I do at all. But if you see me at a convention, I've got a big banner behind me that has Young Justice art on it, and about half of the prints that I have on display are Young Justice. And I've seen people walk by my table wearing a Young Justice costume and look over at my booth and kind of go, huh, and keep going. And I'm like, really? What do I have to do to get you to stop?
The thing that you like exists because of me.
But no, that is overstating it. It existed before I ever came along, and I drew the in comics, and you alluded to it earlier, but my joke is dying. My joke used to be that the most frequent thing I said to people at conventions was, no, I didn't work on the show, I just drew the comic. And that joke is dying now because I'm going to be working on the show.
And that's
which is crazy.
That's a great jumping off point. We're gonna hop right in there, and because that's so. First of all, congratulations.
Oh, thank you. It's very exciting. It's turning my life upside down, but in, I hope, a good way.
I mean, I feel like it would. That seems like a pretty rad deal. Like, and that's a pretty recent announcement, correct?
Yeah, it's something that I had been talking about with Greg Weisman and Brandon Vietti since the spring, and it only became a sure thing a little over a couple months ago, and I didn't announce it publicly immediately, not because it was a secret, but just because I wanted to tell some friends and family members first before they read about it in a Facebook post. And then, yeah, I went and made it public, and everyone has been very happy for me, which is awfully nice. But yeah, I'm going to be moving from my current home, which is in Minnesota, out to Burbank, California, and I will be doing work on season 4 of Young Justice starting in December.
That is amazing. Again, congratulations. I'm really curious to hear, because I've been reading through your blog, which is blog.christopherjonesart.com, and the latest post is about Young Justice, and you kind of went into a little bit of detail with the process of kind of getting on that show. So I'm curious about submitting your art and going through like the hiring. What was that like?
Well, it was sort of a strange thing. I mean, in a weird sort of way, it felt like the last several years of my career had been an extended tryout process for this. I mean, it hadn't been planned that way. It just seems to have worked out that way. I had a conversation with Greg when he and I saw each other at Emerald City Comic-Con in the spring about the fact that I have wanted to work in comics all my life. I have loved doing comics, but I continued to have a lot of frustrations with the fact that work wasn't available as consistently as I wanted. It was this feast or famine thing where I'd be on a project and may have to turn things down because I was busy and couldn't take them on, but something would come to an end and it would take so long to find something else that I occasionally would have these long gaps, and it was stressful. It was difficult financially. I felt like as much as I kept trying to make my situation better, that I just it was more of a struggle than I felt it really ought to be at this stage of my career. And I was just sort of lamenting all that. And I mentioned that I always thought that animation was another field I could have been very happy in. But I'd never gone that way, and I know that you kind of, especially when you're starting out, you pretty much have to live out there and actually work at the studio. And I know it's very expensive to live out there, and it seemed daunting to try to move out there without a job lined up. And it seemed like and maybe not the best choice to like be starting all over, going back to square one career-wise at this stage of things. And as I'm saying all this, Greg's like, I don't know that it would be quite as hard or as bad as you seem to think it would be. And if you actually would be interested in doing this, you really ought to talk to Brandon. And Brandon was very encouraging that if I was serious about this, I should give it a try as well. And then it got to the point where they had gotten the green light for season 4 and were starting to staff up. And I provided some storyboarding samples from some other projects I had done, not anything formally for the animation industry, but just little odds and ends, film projects I'd helped out on, or a little bit of amateur animation I'd had a hand in. I submitted that and I was asked to put a resume together, which came as kind of a shock because resumes aren't a thing you really do much in comics. So it wasn't freshening up a resume so much as it was writing a resume for the first time in about 15 years. And I submitted all that, and apparently they took all of that material and ran it past, I believe it was the directors on the show, who I don't know exactly how the formality of the process works, the bureaucracy of it, but I guess they had some say in who got hired because they're the ones that I would be directly working for rather than going from me to the executive producers. And they all were like, oh yeah, he looks great, hire him. And it was that simple. So I mean, as much as it didn't feel like a sure thing or a done deal while I was in the middle of it, in a weird way, it feels like I've been preparing for this for years. I'm going to work on a show that I've done, over a whole bunch of issues of a comic book showing that I can not only draw in that style but tell stories with those characters. And I'm working with people that I already know and am on friendly terms with, and it's just so it's turning my life upside down in the sense that it's a change of career path, and it's moving to California and all that. And right now I'm in the midst of freaking out over trying to find an apartment out there. But given all that, I can't imagine doing any of this under better circumstances than what I'm operating under. So it's all good.
Yeah, Comic Vine shows me you've credited for 21 issues or 21 appearances.
That sounds about right. Yeah.
And I almost want to say, like, do these guys know who they're talking about? Like, you have to submit work and a resume. Like, don't you know he's the guy who drew the comic book? Can you just say okay?
Well, I mean, I certainly knew when I was going through this that I was kind of on the inside track, in the sense that Greg and Brandon already knew me and wanted this to happen. But I also know that there's enough. It's still a corporate workplace, and they can't just like hire buddies. I had to like demonstrate that I could do the job and kind of jump through all the formal hoops of a hiring process. It's just that thankfully, the work I've done in the last several years, for someone who hadn't previously actually done work in the animation industry, I couldn't have had a better recent work history to kind of show that it's like, no, I can do this. I've in fact done something very similar to this already. It's just we're shifting media here from comics to storyboarding, which obviously there's a lot of overlap between those two in terms of skill set, but it's not exactly the same. So it's going to be an interesting learning process getting out there. There's parts of the logistics of how this works that I don't know yet, and it's going to be kind of interesting finding out when I show up on my first day of work. But yeah, December is going to be interesting. That's when I start.
That's wild.
It is. It's that's to go from the book, and then it seems like a job you were meant for. It's super rad to see that, and it's really neat to be able to read about it on your blog and how it goes into detail about storyboarding and what storyboarding is, because that stuff seems a lot more difficult than it might appear.
Well, yeah, and I will see as I go through this how much. I mean, obviously, I'm going to be under an NDA and won't be able to talk about story content. But to the extent to which it is permissible to do so, I very much kind of want to blog my experience of going out there and starting work on the show, because I think that, fans that have that know of me in relation to, my connections to this franchise would really get a kick out of kind of following me as I go to actually work on that piece of it. But again, I know I have to be very careful as far as, being able to talk about what specifically I'm working on, because boy, I tried to be fairly tight-lipped before, but now that I'm actually going to be working on the thing proper and under an NDA and all that, it's like, I'll be reluctant to say, like, yes, I drew someone in wearing a cape today.
Well, they weren't in a cape last season.
So there's a cape, huh?
Yeah. But yeah, it's I the reason I always have had that line about, I didn't work on the show, I worked on the comic. In no way have I not been super proud to have worked on the tie-in comics. It's just, I know that if people don't know the history of the Young Justice property specifically, or the ins and outs of the comics industry versus the animation industry, they don't necessarily understand that, I didn't create the show. I didn't work on the show. I didn't design the characters. The show is not based on my comic art. I was drawing a comic that was a tie-in to a show that was created and put together without my involvement. Now, that said, I have been treated like I've been part of the Young Justice family by Greg and Brandon and a lot of the writers and voice cast that I have met, and certainly, the fandom has been great to me. But I always just, had wanted to be really clear, because I don't want to have a conversation with somebody where they're heaping praise on me and then I find out that, they are crediting me with something that I didn't actually do.
Or they, or if they talk to you and then they go meet someone else and go, oh yeah, I met the person who worked on the thing, and now just like everyone's stories is wrong.
I was talking to fans at my table a number of years ago, and when you work a table at conventions, you develop this kind of radar where you have an awareness of people that have approached your table, but they haven't walked up and started talking to you yet. So I'm talking to somebody who's looking at my prints and might be buying something, and out of the corner of my eye, I'm seeing this guy. I'm assuming he was the dad talking to his son, because he's standing behind him. He's got his hands on his shoulders, and he leans in close and looking at me, he says, "You see that guy there? He created the Teen Titans." Like, oh God, no, I haven't even worked on the Teen Titans. Oh my God, no. First of all, Young Justice is not Teen Titans. Second of all, I didn't create either one. People also, not only do the people confuse Young Justice and Teen Titans, I've had so many people that'll look at my stuff and I will hear them say, they'll call it Young Justice League. I kind of want to turn around and point at my banner and be like, where do you see the word league on here anywhere? You're filling that in. That is not in the name. But, people know what they know, and they just make all these connections, and
they'll just start mashing things together.
Yeah, it's just how people are.
Yeah.
I knew someone who was a big fan of The Flash Gordon.
Oh, yeah.
No joke. That's a thing.
Yeah. That speedster from the planet Mongo.
Or it's like how every time you hear a character named Baron, you want to add a Von after it. Like Baron von Strucker. That's a guy, right?
Nope.
No?
No.
Baron von Zemo.
I hate you.
Is that the one?
I'm very angry. Zemo has no Von, and it's the title last name. He's only Von when he's Wolfgang von Strucker. It's Jared knows this. That is a pet peeve of mine.
That's the thing. I don't know which one is actually which. I just know that when I say Baron and then Von, you get really upset.
Yeah.
But anyways, your brain just fills it in.
God damn it.
Derailed.
Did you have your own natural art style? Did you have to adapt to a Young Justice style, or are
I
you very
I
versatile?
I am not sure I know exactly what my own natural art style looks like. I'm so used to adapting my art to what suits the project I'm working on. I know that people can recognize my style from project to project, but I mean, I'm always doing something very different. And that I mean, a lot of that comes from the fact that I've done so many different comics projects that because they're based on something in animation, that I have specific animation models I'm trying to match.
Mhm.
But then when you shift gears from something like that to doing I've done comics based on live action TV and film properties, whether that's Doctor Who or Batman 66 or Kolchak the Night Stalker or something else. That's I'm not drawing that in the same style I would draw a straight superhero book if DC gave me one that wasn't based on anything in particular.
Hmm.
I just did this Svengoolie meets the DC Universe thing, which they're going to be launching at New York Comic Con, which is only 8 pages, but a ton of fun to do, given that I'm a big Svengoolie fan, who is a late night horror host for anyone who doesn't know. And that was like closer to a natural style for me because they didn't tell me to draw it like anything in particular, except for the fact that because I wanted to capture a likeness of Svengoolie, I was using this very photo-referenced, realistic style for him. So to make everything else match, I kind of had to draw all the superhero characters similarly,
Mhm.
which then kind of locks you into a certain approach to it. So it seems like every project there's something that sort of dictates the style I do it in, if that makes sense.
Mhm. Mhm. It makes me wonder if that's something you have to address when a fan asks for a sketch or a commission of some kind, and is or
I I Yeah, I'll ask what if there's a particular version of something they want. I mean, someone will say like, can you draw Batgirl? I'm like, all right, are we talking are we talking like a Young Justice Batgirl? Are we talking like the Batman Strikes Batgirl? Are we talking just a straight up like modern comics Batgirl? Do you want Yvonne Craig? What are we what are we talking here? And then depending on what version of the character they want, I'll try to draw it in a somewhat appropriate art style. But yeah, I mean, it's funny that like people don't seem to be overly fussy. There's a weird thing when you do sketches at conventions. I don't know if every artist feels this way. I never feel like I'm doing my best work on convention sketches. You're usually working quickly. You're working either at your table in Artist Alley or in your hotel room or something. You're not in your studio and all set up. And so for a long time, I was sort of like, oh God, I always wish I had more time to spend on this and could do a couple of revisions. And I was in my studio working on this, but I'm not. And then the person comes to pick it up, and almost without fail, you just see their face light up like it's 10 times better than they ever imagined it could possibly be. And you're like, I'm really glad you're happy with it. That's great. Um, I don't know. Maybe that's just my personal anxiety and hangups, but I've heard a couple of other artists mention that they feel similarly with their convention sketches.
And that's one thing I wanted to comment on. That even though there is the new gig where you're going to be moving, pretty much across the country,
Yeah,
you're still
halfway
going at least half. I know states. You're still going to be at least in the near future going to be doing some con scene. We're going to be seeing you at New York Comic Con in just a couple weeks.
Yes.
And and that's just what, a couple 2 months before you move out to California.
Yeah, terrifyingly, I have another convention after that before the move. I'm also going to be at the Grand Rapids Comic Con in Michigan early November. After that, yeah, I mean, I hope to keep hitting conventions pretty regularly. I'm waiting to find out how much flexibility I have getting time off to go. It's gonna be the first time in quite a while that I've had to worry about like vacation time to go to a convention.
Right.
but I certainly plan to keep doing them, and I'd love to keep doing comics work, although I really need to get a start on this new job and see how much energy and bandwidth I have left after a week's work working on the show to want to do anything else other than relax and sleep. So we'll see. I mean, certainly I'm not done with comics forever. It's just a question of does it get put completely on hold until I'm done with season 4 of Young Justice, or can I do some stuff on the side while I'm doing season 4? We'll find out.
Just ask for like real far deadlines.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's the thing. So much stuff is like, I have a lot more flexibility to do things if I could just like work on it as time is available until it's done. But usually, people come to you when they need something in a hurry.
Yeah.
So we'll see. We'll see how it goes.
Looking at your blog, it looks like you've been to New York Comic Con at least 7, maybe 8 years in a row now. Do you see yourself, like, if you, let's say, you continue working out west, turns out everything is incredible. Oh my God, we're gonna have this job for a real long time, long haul. Do you see yourself going to New York as like a fan in the future, or would you try to table again?
Oh, I absolutely. I would want to keep tabling. I mean, I love setting up at New York Comic Con, and honestly, sitting at my table making a little bit of money. I mean, one, it's the best possible way for me to meet a lot of fans and not have to be fighting my way through crowds all day.
True.
But also it helps offset the cost of going because it is not a cheap convention to attend, as everyone knows. And I'm out there with a table, but I'm not at the level of celebrity where they are bringing me out as a guest and paying for my hotel room. I'm going out on there on my own and paying for my hotel and paying for my table space, and just trying to make enough money at the show to offset all that. And usually, I do, and that's great. But that's the only reason I really have to care about that much about money at those shows, is just not wanting to go in the hole. I mean, I go because it's great to meet fans and meet my peers. It's such a strange industry that it's this collaborative medium, but most of us do our work from home in isolation, and the only time we meet our coworkers is when we go to an event like a convention somewhere. It's a strange business. What can I say?
I never
But
even
yeah,
really thought of it that way.
I definitely want to keep going I definitely want to keep going to New York Comic Con and other conventions as I can manage. I'm looking forward to finding out what more of the smaller conventions in the California area are. I haven't done San Diego in quite a few years because of the cost.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I hear there's a pretty decent sized show out there called San Diego Comic Con.
Yeah, there is, but there's a waiting list to get into the Artist Alley, and it's really expensive to go to. And unlike New York, New York, when your hotel room costs $300 a night, it's because you're in Manhattan and that room always costs $300 a night. As opposed to, San Diego, where any other weekend of the year your hotel room would cost less than half as much. Not to mention the fact that you get 3 blocks away from the convention in New York, and you can actually find places to go eat that aren't a 3-hour wait.
Yep.
Because it's Manhattan and not the poor little Gaslamp district, which is completely overwhelmed by the event that has grown there. No, I miss San Diego Comic Con, and maybe being out there means that it'll be logistically feasible to start going to that again. But
Right.
It's been a while.
I was looking up comic book database, and there's a lot more penciling credits than there are inking credits. And usually I don't get this question right when I ask it. And I was like, oh, do you prefer to ink or pencil? And in the past, we've had an artist go, Well, if I'm inking, then I'm inking my own pencils, so that's why I'm on there as an inker. And I go,
Yeah,
oh right, of course.
I don't think I've ever in my career inked somebody else's pencils. It's never come up. What it has been is just that I, getting to ink my own pencils. One, it's nice to have a little more control over what the finished product looks like, and two, because there's a greater efficiency to it. I don't have to put as much time into the pencils if I know I'm going to ink it myself, because I just need to kind of get the framework down,
Mhm.
as opposed to having to put enough there that I'm fully communicating my intent of what it should look like. It means that it's a better deal to do both jobs and get paid for both parts, as opposed to just penciling for someone else to ink. And really, when I started on the Young Justice tie-in comic, I was interested in inking that myself from the start. But when I first came on board with I think it was issue 5, um, the schedule was tight enough that I offered, how about for the first couple issues here, I just pencil and someone else inks, so that I can just jump right on to the next issue, and we can try to get the schedule a little more under control. And my editor at the time seemed to love that idea, and just with various things, it took a few more issues than I would have expected at the outset to get to the point where I started inking. But then I started inking on issue 14, and I don't think I've drawn a comic since that I didn't ink.
Hmm.
It's a package deal now that I do the whole deal, all the line art. So yeah, there are things that are fun about collaborating with an inker if it's a really good inker, and there are definitely some inkers out there that I think it'd be really fun to work with. But it just that usually is not the option on the table. I just get asked if I want to draw something, and usually there's not a lot of time to go seeing if like the ideal inker would be available, and usually the only way to really make it work financially is to do the whole thing anyway, and so it hasn't really come up since.
This might be, I don't know, an uncomfortable question, but having worked on with Young Justice so much and like DC properties that are aimed towards a younger audience, are there points where you feel like you have to turn down like more adult work or something? Like if Xenoscope came to you with Grim Fairy Tales covers and you're like, I don't think my name should be attached to that, considering the fans I would have from the Young Justice crowd.
No, it's actually the opposite. I don't get offered a lot of stuff that isn't all ages. DC, I don't think since I started doing animation tie-in stuff that they've really offered me anything that wasn't all ages. One of the reasons I jumped at doing some of the Doctor Who work I've done, aside from the fact that I'm a big Doctor Who fan, so that's been exciting in its own right. But one of the reasons I looked at those as a good opportunity was that it was a chance to do something that wasn't based on animation, and it wasn't considered for kids. I guess the Batman 66 story that I did for DC would be considered for kids or based on animation, but it was sort of a humor book, so that it still is its own separate category. But yeah, I haven't been offered a chance to draw a straight superhero title since I started my whole run on the Batman Strikes and Justice League Adventures and Avengers vs. Mightiest Heroes and Young Justice, and I think it's kind of like typecasting for actors. You just get seen a certain way, and even though I certainly have had stuff in my portfolio and I've had projects like Doctor Who that I think demonstrate that I can certainly do other kinds of material, that's just not what brings me to mind for editors. I come to mind when someone's got a cartoon book that they need drawn. So I'd love to do some more stuff. My earliest work in comics was doing horror comics.
Yeah, you guess
I
Reanimator.
drew I drew the comic book adaptation of Reanimator. I did Kolchak the Night Stalker. I did some other Lovecraft stuff, and I love doing that kind of material. But it doesn't get offered to me much anymore, and sadly, some of the times that it's been offered to me in recent years that I've had to turn down because it was for a smaller publisher and they were requiring a commitment of a number of pages at a page rate that I just I can't say yes to that and pay my rent, which is an unfortunate situation. I have all the mad respect in the world for the creators that manage to do comics and a day job at the same time. I'm at the place where it's like, no, this is what I'm doing to make a living, so it's gotta pay to a certain level, or I can't say yes to it.
Got to pay the bills. No one's gonna fault you for that.
Well, I feel incredibly privileged that I get to do something that I love for a living, but it is kind of a trap in that it then locks you into, you can only say yes to certain kinds of projects because if someone comes to me for something that sounds like crazy fun and it's 10 or 20 pages, I'll find a way to make it happen. But when someone comes to you and says, okay, so it's a 6-issue run, I'm like, okay, well that's full-time work for half a year.
Right.
I can't do that unless I can actually cover all my expenses on what you're paying.
Right.
So, it's the realities of it being a business, it's not a comics hobby, it's a comics job. So
it got real. Just got real. As we,
I'm a real serious guy.
I think it's fairly evident. Now, as we get toward the end here, unfortunately, this has been, and I say this every time, but it always feels like it every time. This is the quickest half hour in the history of my life, even faster than my lunch breaks at work. Because you always it's the fastest half hour of the day. As we come up to the end of our time here, we like to give our guests a moment or two to kind of plug where they're at. Whether we talked about New York. You mentioned you're going to be at another show as well, and we mentioned the blog. Where can people see you in the future, and also if they want to go looking for you on the internet, where are you most active? Where can they find you?
Well, as we mentioned, coming up in just over a week, New York Comic Con. I'm in Artist Alley, table B10. And I will be at the Grand Rapids Comic Con. But really, if you want to keep track of my personal appearances or anything else I'm doing, if you go to my blog, which is ChristopherJonesArt.com, that has links to all my other social media. I'm on Facebook and Twitter and Tumblr and Instagram, but you can link to all those things from there. And I always plug my upcoming appearances. So if you follow me, you will get the alerts as to where I'm going to be. Excellent. And like I said, I do hope to keep making the convention appearances as I shift over into to working out in California on Young Justice season 4. But we're gonna have to see what the work schedule looks like. It's probably gonna be fine. I'm probably gonna be able to just keep doing what I've been doing. But I'm recognizing that it's like, oh, I actually have to jump through a couple of hoops to make sure I can go, as opposed to just, no, I can go wherever I want. I'm my own boss.
Well, again, congratulations on the new job. I'm sure you're gonna do my main man Connor Kent proud.
We're writing him out of the show.
Perfect. Perfect.
I should have mentioned up front. We're writing him out of the show.
You'll give him the send off he deserves.
I shouldn't say joke. I can't make jokes like that anymore. People will take me seriously. That is a joke. I have no knowledge of anything dire or otherwise happening to Connor Kent in season 4.
That's I can confirm. I mean, he's the greatest character in DC. Why would you ever get rid of him, right?
There you go.
Alex agrees with me. You can hear it in his voice.
Well,
so again, congratulations. That's amazing. Best of luck on
as I polarize the hosts and sow the seeds of division.
Yeah, it's happened before.
I'm more of an Arrow guy.
I've had it. My original gamer tag on Xbox Live was named after Connor Kent, and I'm really cool because I spell part of it with a 0 instead of an O. And I think I've had a grand total of 2 people that I've ever played online video games with actually recognize the name and like where it came from.
Well, there you go.
But someday I'll get my time to shine.
There's
But
there's a cosplayer here in Connecticut who goes to ConnecticCon every year, and I've seen her there for like 7 or 8 years. And every year she has the perfect Arrowette costume.
yeah,
And like I'm sad if I don't see it there. And I'm like, did she retire yet?
Yep.
I hope not.
it's because she's just there to to make sure you're happy. But this was great, Christopher. Thank you so much for coming on. Hopefully, we will see you in a couple weeks or next week. Next week. Oh my God!
I know. It's crazy, isn't it? Day 1 of New York is a week from today.
Oh
Yeah.
my God!
Record this.
We're going to our first Thursday ever, so it should be fun.
Have fun.
Right? Yeah, we're hoping. We usually do the Friday, but
yeah, I will be there. And yeah, for anyone coming to New York Comic Con, I don't have the times at my fingertips, but I will be doing a signing with Svengoolie at the DC booth for our Svengoolie Meets the DC Universe comic, which is right before he does his Svengoolie 40th anniversary panel. So you can come find me there, or you can come find me in Artist Alley.
excellent. Check the program or check out Artist Alley B10 to get your Christopher Jones fix. And
there you go.
And have a good time. Christopher, thank you so much for coming on. This was fantastic. And hopefully we'll see you next week.
Sounds good.
And with me now is Domo Stanton. Thank you for joining us.
Hey, what's up, man? How you doing?
I'm pretty good. This is like our pre-New York Comic Con 2019 episode. We're having on some artists to talk about the convention, talk about what their work is, what they've done, and maybe some about just convention work itself. I first ran into you, I think it was 2 or 3 years ago, when Artist Alley was kind of like in that one side room and it was way too small for what it needed to be.
Yeah, I remember that.
And I just happened to be looking around. I wanted to get another sketch. I saw your table. You had some pretty rad stuff. If we might as well get started about sketches, because one of the things that I like is negotiating with the artist. And I said to you, like, how are your robots? And you said, I do some dope robots. And I was like, nice. How about a Sentinel? And and you said, I can make a good Sentinel. And that's what we negotiated to. And then I bought what was it? The Big Con? Yeah.
On job, yeah.
Yeah. That was fun. And and from what I've seen on because I looked up some of your stuff on Sketch Prices, and other artists have also, kind of do the negotiating route, because I saw you did Skin from Gen X for somebody.
Yep.
And those aren't usually like irregular characters that get requested. To be like, hey, draw this weird guy from Gen X, like, just draw the robot. No, I don't want Wolverine fighting him, just the robot itself.
Right. Yeah, that's the fun thing about conventions, though, is that like it gives us artists somewhat of a chance to step out of our comfort zone and draw a lot of different types of characters, because of the fact that, like, there's a chance that I'll never get to work on Generation X. And like, then I have this chance at a convention to, if someone requests a character like Skin or like a Sunspot or Marrow, like those type of different characters that I never really would get a chance to draw professionally, I get a chance to draw at conventions. So it's actually pretty cool, the ideas that some people come up with.
Do you prefer the negotiating tactic, or is it kind of like a grudging yes when someone wants a sketch and they just name a character that either you don't know, can you just handle it, or look up reference, or are there things that you would rather turn down and say, you got anything else?
I don't know. I've never really turned down a character so far. Like I've drawn anything from Naruto characters to Steven Universe characters to Sentinels. I never really limit myself in terms of the type of character I draw. Like I just love to like do a lot of different things, like I feel like in comics in general we kind of get bogged down with a certain type of style and a certain type of character that we tend to draw often, especially when you're an artist working on a long-term book.
Mhm.
And so like when it comes to people asking different type of characters, I like when they give me like the really crazy ideas, like drawing the hunchback dude from 300, or like, you know what I'm saying? Just random characters. I've even drawn wrestlers before.
Mhm.
Um, like there's no limit as far as I'm concerned, at least. Like I just love drawing all types of different characters. So, uh, when it comes to people giving me options, I'm always undecided. Like I love it when someone has like an idea of what they want when they come up to me. And like if they have a small list of characters, then that's pretty cool. But like when somebody's like, draw whatever you want, I'm like, oh, 9 times out of 10, this is either going to be a Spider-Man or Deadpool. Like if you haven't if you have a character that you want, like let me know and I'll look it up for you, you know.
In pre-show briefly, you had said you're a guest this year, so you don't have to
Mhm.
buy your own table, which must be nice.
It is, yes.
So is that with House of Whispers, what you're currently working on, or like?
Yes, I'm currently working for DC Comics on the Sandman universe, House of Whispers, and which used to be on Vertigo, but I don't know if you heard the news that Vertigo is being shut down.
Mhm, mhm.
So there will be no more Vertigo comics, but the future of the Sandman series will be published under the new, or I don't know if it's really new, the Black Label.
Right.
So it'll continue under the Black Label. But yeah, I'm currently working on House of Whispers, which is written by Nalo Hopkinson, colored by I guess the first couple of issues, the first 10 issues are colored by John Roush, and after that it continues with Zach Atkinson.
Is this a style that you're familiar with? Like, does it? Because people think of Sandman, the Sandman universe, and they kind of have like an established style in mind. And was
Mhm.
this something where the company came to you and said, "No, I want you to do this your way," or is it a matter of like, do you want to adapt, or is it just you're going to draw how you draw it, and the company trusts you?
Yeah, they came to me with complete trust. I if I was being perfectly honest, I was extremely surprised when they came to me with this particular book because I'm more used to drawing like you know kind of more superhero stuff like the Deadpools and the Spider-Mans,
Mm-hmm.
Moon Girl, Evil Dinosaur, Punisher, and Doctor Strange. I drew Starbrand and Nightmask for Marvel, and a couple of those other stories that I mentioned. And so when they came to me with the Sandman book, I was like, wait, what? that's that's the last thing that I thought they would come to me with. But they saw some of the work that I actually did on Moon Girl and Devil Dinosaur for Marvel, and thought that I would be a really good fit for House of Whispers. And like they didn't ask me to change anything or adapt to any certain type of style. Like just come in, do what I do best, and that's what I've been doing, and I've been having a lot of fun with it.
And one of the fun things that I want to touch on is how if people want to watch you actively make this book, they can, because you're streaming it
Yeah,
on Twitch.
yes sir, yes sir. I stream on like you said, I stream on Twitch, and the way I do it is I don't like stream the entire issue.
Uh-huh.
So I only stream various pages of each issue, in which I don't show death scenes.
Mm-hmm.
I don't show like any major transformations of any kind, or if there's a cameo in the book. So that way, what you're getting in the series is somewhat of a trailer of what's to come. And it's been helping to generate a lot of interest in the series, which has been really cool. Because I like to talk about my process
Mm-hmm.
in terms of perspective, character anatomy, composition, and overall storytelling. And I think not only has brought a lot more interest into people who might be interested in the idea of comics, but not necessarily know everything that goes into it. But also for the series in general, I think a lot of people have come by my streams and gotten to know me as a person and have went out and supported the series because of that. And it's interesting because you don't see a lot of comic artists putting their process out anywhere, so it's been a rare opportunity to kind of enlighten a lot of people on how the process is done.
Yeah, that's really cool. And like, there's not going to be many spoilers because it's not like you're putting in word bubbles or anything. So there's
exactly. And it's been really great. I got permission from my editor, of course, to be able to do it in the first place. But the idea is, even as a storyteller, hopefully people can understand what's happening on the page in general as I'm drawing the pages, because you still want some type of frame of reference in terms of like, okay, so these people are obviously fighting. They don't look very friendly with each other, but they're not exactly enemies. Stuff like that. But on the same note, I try to make sure that I'm not giving away key plot points in the story, so that people want to, like, a lot of people, for instance, come by my stream and they're like, man, I'm so interested to seeing what leads up to this scene. Like, I need to pick up this book and read it because this looks so interesting, So that's been really cool.
Has it been more fun as an artist? Like, because I know some people will draw with noise in the background or with music playing, or or like sometimes they're just in a dark room at their desk with one light or whatever, versus like watching the screen and interacting with the chat. Because I was able to browse some of your past streams that are still up, and like you're interacting with the chat and you're talking with people and like you're reading what they're saying, you're responding to them. Does that like make your process more fun, or at least more entertaining for you while you're doing it?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, for me, I miss the old days of the artist studios, and I feel like being able to kind of hang out with chat and interact and talk to people as I'm drawing is giving me a little bit of sense of that kind of old school artist studio where I'm kind of hanging out with people, and I get like a lot of artists as well, consumers in my chat, so like I can share ideas with various artists who show up and just kind of talk about random fun things. Like we talk about our favorite movies and what type of food we like and what we have going on with our days and stuff like that. So it's really nice. And the interesting thing is that I'm a lot of times more productive when I'm on stream, because I think having that crowd there with me as I'm drawing kind of keeps me accountable, where you kind of get in your own way when you're working alone, and you might finish a panel and feel accomplished. So then you like get up and start like procrastinating, but as I'm interacting with chat, they're kind of keeping me there working. So I actually end up getting a lot more done on stream than I do sometimes off stream, which is pretty cool.
And like I said, I've only been able to browse a few. Do you already have like a lot done for layouts or pencils or whatnot, versus like having to pause drawing for a sec to reread your script page to know what it is you're supposed to draw?
Right. Yeah. Whenever I'm streaming, I usually do my layout process off stream. And by the time I start streaming the pages that I'm working on, it's like I'm just going straight into the full drawing of it. And that way, I don't have to like continuously, because I feel like for me, the layout process, even though I talk about it a lot on stream, it's almost like solving a puzzle. And I feel like, if I'm going to be on stream, I want to be able to hang out with my chat and talk to them and that type of stuff. And when I'm working on layouts, like I have to just be on my own and going back and forth with the script and kind of solving that puzzle. So like I usually get that done first, and then by the time I hop on stream, like I'll talk about, okay, so this is how I figured out this page. Here's how I figured out the layout of this page. This is what I was thinking as I was putting together this page, that sort of thing.
And from what I've seen so far, it's all been traditional.
Yes, sir. All traditional.
Do you have any plans to try digital stuff, or have you already done a few like other things, or is everything you do pencil and ink?
It's all pencil and ink, but like whenever I have to, like I do very small edits and stuff like that digitally. So for instance, if I'm thinking about some really crazy effects, or if I need to copy and paste something, like say a logo of a restaurant, for instance, I might draw that one time and then just copy and paste it throughout each page so I don't have to keep redrawing it over and over. Things like that I'll do digitally. And if I have to make any major changes, say redo a character design, then I would probably redo it digitally rather than having to white out the traditional page. So that type of stuff, like fixes, updates, and special effects, those things, like I'll do digitally. Otherwise, I'm like, I would say about 90 to 95% all traditional.
What you were saying earlier about getting a chance to draw something different than what you've usually been, and it's like getting the chance to draw a skin or a sentinel. And I want to bring up the big con job. Whereas like people, when I was a kid, I thought I could draw, but I learned I can't. And and I can imagine people like wanting to draw Wolverine, they want to draw Batman, and then the story comes along where it's like, yeah, man, just draw like old people in huge crowds. Like just give me big crowds.
Oh my goodness, those crowds. I do not miss those crowds.
So as a brief synopsis, the book was about if you've been to any conventions, our podcast has a phrase, we call it Sadness Alley. It's not very kind, but it's the row of like quote unquote celebrity tables where it's like someone was in a TV show from the 70s and like they're kind of just reading the newspaper, falling asleep at the table. And like some of them we go, oh yeah, it's that guy, but I'm not interested in meeting them. I want to be there to meet someone else, but they might get a few fans, and it's unfortunate, but it looks kind of sad. Hence we call it Sadness Alley. And the book is basically about some of these people who worked on this amazing thing a while ago, but don't have much current work, and they come up with this scheme to like rob San Diego Comic-Con. And it was a fun book. I enjoyed it, and like I dug the characters, I dug the interactions, I liked a lot of it.
Thank you so much, man.
Yeah, and I bought that off you at New York Comic Con.
Yeah,
and it also made me curious. Like, I wonder how much Palmiotti like thought of actually robbing a convention to have come up with that too.
Yo, that would be hilarious if they actually like kind of staged something like that to promote the book. How amazing would that be?
So how did you come by getting that job?
So the interesting thing about that was I tried out for that book. At that point, I had done maybe Deadpool Family with Marvel, and then I had a lot of trouble finding comic work after that. So I ended up getting an animation for about 3 years. I was working at Floyd County Studios, which if you don't recognize that name, you might recognize Archer. is the cartoon that studio worked on. So I worked on Archer for 2.5 years, and then I was a lead character designer on Chosen for a year. In which after Chosen was canceled, was when I was let go from the company and started getting back into searching for comic work. So I'd been in contact with Boom over those years, but never had a chance to work with them because I was working in animation for a while. And eventually I had moved to Austin, Texas, where I ran into one of their group editors at a party. And we were talking at this party, and he was like, "Yeah, so what are you up to these days?" And I was just like, "Dude, I'm free. I'm completely free. I haven't had any comic work for a couple of years." And he was like, "Oh man, seriously? Like, dude, like, hit me up tomorrow, and I'll see about what we can do about getting you on a book." So I messaged him the next day. And he got back to me right away, and he said, "All right, so we have this thing going on. Is there any way you can do 3 sample pages from this script?" And I said, "Sure." I did the sample pages, and after about a week, they got back to me and said, "Hey, all right, so out of however many other people tried out, Jimmy Palmiotti seemed to love your work, so we're gonna move forward." And I had no idea. Like, they didn't tell me that I was trying out for 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 a book. Like, they just asked me for samples for that script. I didn't know I was actually trying out against, like, other people who were putting in on it as well. But after those pages, Jimmy seemed to like what I do, so that was pretty much how it came about.
That's rad.
Yeah.
Were any of the designs already done, or did you have to do those too? Because basically what
Yeah.
happened was, like, an entire world was created, so it's not just drawing characters. It's like, well, the characters have history because they were in a sci-fi movie, so now I have to draw the sci-fi aspects, but draw those
Right.
as costumes as well, or draw that as makeup because they're in the showbiz. So now you're drawing cameras and how things would look on camera as opposed to, like, just the action happening.
Right. Yeah. And I designed everything down to the characters. Like, I did have some point of reference in the form of description, like personality wise, from Jimmy and Matt. But besides that, the look of the characters and everything, I went back and forth. All came from me, and just got approved through Jimmy and the editors, and we move forward from there. And getting to design a lot of those characters were really fun, because of the fact that, like, some of them were based on, like, people from real life. Some of them may look familiar, some of them may not, but they were a lot of them were based from people in real life. And to get to design those characters and that to work on that story was so different than anything that I ever would have imagined I get a chance to work on, that I just had a lot of fun with it.
I imagine, do you have a preference between working with animation versus working in comics?
Oh, I love comics. I'm comics all the way, 100%. I liked working in animation. I had a lot of fun with a lot of the files that I did, but it's definitely a different feeling. Where in animation, I like the team aspect. I like working with a lot of the people that I got a chance to work with. But there's definitely a feeling of being a cog in a wheel in animation. Whereas in comics, they seek you out because of what you do. They look for your expertise and trust you with their ideas. And in animation, I didn't even after the fact that I worked as a lead character designer on one of the series. After a while, the designs that I created become a mainstreamed style that doesn't allow me to play around more after that. Whereas as a comic artist, I continue to learn and create the stuff that I want to do with the series. And everyone who I've worked with, Boom Studios, Marvel, DC, everyone who I've worked with has been really gracious and really kind in terms of hiring me for what I do best and allowing me to do what I do best, you know?
Because I've heard horror stories in the past where they get sent their pages back and say, redo this, edit that. And there's either rewrites or like redesigns. And, you know, there's either the artist just takes it and does it because that's part of their job, or like some other names might say, well, this is what I made, so this is what you're stuck with.
I think in those cases, I could be wrong. I've never had that experience, but I think in those cases, a lot of that happens when you're working on like what do you call those intellectual properties?
Oh yeah,
like a Star Wars or like a Sonic the Hedgehog. When you're working on those franchised properties, then yeah, they definitely have like a very specific look. Like the Star Wars stuff, for instance, a lot of that stuff not only goes through the company itself, but a lot of the actors even have say in what the artwork looks like. So if an actor, for instance, doesn't like the way you draw them, then they'll tell the editors to send the artwork back you know, fix it. So I think a lot of that comes with those kind of restricted properties.
I bought I must have been like a collector card series. I bought the originals to Matthew Clark had worked on Firefly. And there was like a card of Malcolm confronting Badger.
Okay.
And so like all you saw was the back of Badger's head wearing the hat because they didn't have the rights to the actor who was it, Mark, I can't think of his name. So he couldn't actually draw Badger, so all he could do was like kind of put his silhouette of the hat there, but then he could draw Malcolm Reynolds.
Right. Yeah. I actually had run into the same type of thing where I worked on a few WWE books for Boom Studios, and they don't have the rights to draw The Rock.
Really?
So yeah, we couldn't show The Rock's likeness. And so there's one event where it was The Rock facing Mankind, and Stone Cold Steve Austin comes in, hits The Rock with a chair, and places Mankind over The Rock for the pin. So it was a big moment between the Mankind and The Rock, and I couldn't show The Rock's face.
Wow.
So I had to somehow like move the camera in different directions and like use body parts to kind of hide The Rock's face in order to have this scene work and make sure people knew it was The Rock without actually showing his face, you know?
That's wild.
That's pretty crazy.
Hang on. Now I got to check because I have like some of your info up. That was, let's see, were those both 2018?
I think so. I think it was around 2017, 2018.
Okay.
Because this particular story was in the WWE Attitude Era special, in which I did a story called the Three Faces of Foley. And yeah, it was a pretty interesting story, but it was a lot of fun though.
Foley has been one of my favorites, but like, so one of my questions is like, over time, The Rock's gotten more and bigger tattoos. So it's like, hang on, I can't draw this tattoo on him because he didn't have this one yet. Because if this was actually happened in like 2007 or something.
Right. Yeah.
That's wild. That's funny.
Yeah.
Too.
Lucky for me, in that particular match, he actually wore his
Oh, like
sports.
the big silky shirt or something.
Yeah. It was like the like the black sweatpants he usually
Yeah,
wears, the track shirt.
yeah.
He was wearing that, so I actually didn't have to worry about his tattoos at all, which was nice.
That's fun. That's wild.
Yeah.
I'm on comic book DB with a database, and
Uh-huh.
it's got like a lot of your work on there. And
Cool.
do you prefer to ink your own work, or is that sometimes negotiable?
I actually do. I've over the years, I found that I get a lot more out of my work when I ink myself.
Mhm.
For some reason, and it might just be kind of a mind over matter thing, where I feel like when I pencil myself, when I'm just doing pencil sketches, I can't wrap my head around the way I draw certain things. So my anatomy tends to be weird, and like my perspective, I can never fully grasp the finished idea of what I want to draw when I'm just working with pencils. Whereas when I'm inking myself, I can see the final product right there. So when things look off, I can see it looks off and I can fix it. Whereas when like it makes me die just a little bit inside when I pencil something and then I see somebody ink me and then they inked the mistake that I penciled. And then I'm just like, oh no, why didn't they fix that? So I found that inking myself kind of helps me lessen the mistakes that I make on the page.
And I guess to work faster too. This
Yeah.
way, like if you don't have to worry about fixing the mistake in pencil right then, you know you can get it later and not have to like waste whatever time that might have taken.
Yeah, exactly.
This has been great. Can you do me a favor and plug all the places where listeners can find you if
For sure.
if they would like to look you up?
Definitely. I made it very easy. You can find me at Domo Stanton, DOMO STANTON, no spaces or underscores, just one word, on pretty much everything, on Twitter, Instagram, Twitch, and even Blogger. You can find me Domo Stanton on everything.
And for any of our fans who are curious, like I mentioned way in the beginning of this segment, if you would like to see other fan interactions, we always dig sketch prices where people will post what they got, where they got it from, and they'll give prices for it. So whoever comes to the show next can know, like, well, here's how much I think I should bring if I want to go see this artist. And then they have a basic guideline. And there was a few I sent to Jared to make him jealous that he couldn't be here to talk to you too. Because there was a really nice Damian Wayne, and the Hell Diva was fun, and you had a colored torso of X-23, which looked gorgeous.
Oh, thank you very much. I appreciate that, yo.
And make sure you go visit Domo at New York Comic Con 2019 this year.
Thank you so much for having me, man.
Thank you.
So that was our chat with Christopher Jones and Domo Stanton. Alex, thank you for taking that one.
It was fun. Like I had a lot to go on, so there wasn't too many pauses, and I actually got to edit some of my dumb uhs and pauses, trying to figure out what I was going to say next.
I do whenever I say something stupid. I put it in my notes, and I usually call myself something pretty derogatory.
They were both fun, and I kind of wish we could have had them on for full hours.
Yeah, it's one of those. Looking back, it's like, yep.
Well,
Yep.
I mean, we got double the guest. Go visit them at New York Comic Con.
Yep.
Go to their social medias. Go to their stores. Buy their stuff. Buy their art. And tell us if you want to hear more from them.
Right.
And we'll ask them back on in the future.
Maybe. Who knows?
Yep.
Yep. Because you can only fit so much in a half hour, and it was painfully aware during those half hours. But they're rad. Big thank you to Christopher Jones and Domo Stanton again for coming on, giving us their time right before one of the biggest shows of the year. So that was pretty rad. Big thank you to you, my friend Alex, for doing that by yourself. That must be weird, man.
The toughest part was looking at the screen trying to work the soundboard.
All the same, yeah, yep. While, because like usually it's one or the other. Like you're doing the call and I'll do the recording, or I'll do the I'll do the call and you'll do the recording and stuff. Like we've done that before. Like, but it's never the whole thing. So mad ups. But that's gonna do it. I'm done talking. I gotta go prep. I got a New York Comic-Con to prep for. I got to start researching how much do I want to carry versus how much do I want to like kill my back. But we'll get there. But that was fun.
Bring all of your omnibuy.
All of them.
Yeah.
I was in short story. We went to Terrificon a couple weeks ago, and I brought 2 omnibuses size, and because we had a table, so I could drop them. I didn't have to carry them all day.
Yeah.
But when I was waiting in line for like the 2 hours that they were in my bag, I felt that for like 4 days afterwards. I don't know how some people do it, but yeah, we shall see.
At least you had it in a bag and not in a hand truck.
Yeah, never. I'm not a savage. No, it's not gonna. I'm not gonna. Hey, you know what? I need 8 times the amount of space because I need things signed. Anyways, that's a whole nother episode. That's gonna do it. New York Comic Con next week. We will be there on Thursday. It'll be a lot of fun. So for Christopher Jones and Domo Stanton, I have been JR.
I'm Alex.
And this has been episode 390 of Opinions May Vary.